Hello, everyone. It's been a while, and are tuning into this as someone who used to watch some of my old ad nauseum videos. I just want to say thank you. It's been, as I said, a while, and unfortunately, Magic is not in the same place that it was when we left off, but there is work to be done and decks to try out. Unfortunately, Ad nauseum is no longer with us in a strong capacity. The deck is, it can still be played, but it is not particularly good right now, as much as that breaks my heart. And combo in Modern is in a very awkward place due to a lot of the Modern Horizons cards and a lot of the One Ring, Bowmaster, and things like this. So I've been on a bit of a journey recently. I moved, I'm set up a little bit more in a new place, and I'm at a point in my life where I can have a bit more time to make some more content again, and that's something I do intend to do. Things have kind of gotten away from me a little bit the past couple of years, but I'm finding myself with a little bit more time and a little bit more ability to put out some content. So that's the good news. I intend to keep making content, and we'll see where this goes. But the bad news, as I was saying, is that combo in Modern is in a grim place. There's Living End. Living End isn't exactly my idea of a exciting combo deck. Well, it's a good deck. It's just not quite my cup of tea. I'd rather be playing a whole pile of spells, drawing a whole pile of cards, something Storm style, or something with Thassa's Oracle, or both. There's Grinding Station, but Ragavan is not a card I would want to be playing. And really, those are like the two biggest combo decks in Modern at the moment. So we need to, or I've decided that I want to try to work on hopefully some other up-and-coming combo decks, see if we can make anything happen, throw a bunch of combo decks at the wall and see what sticks. This list that I'm currently sitting on is not something that is particularly crazy. I'm sure a lot of people had the idea of sticking Beseech with Song. I recorded this a few days ago, and in the intervening time period, I already saw the Epic Storm put out a video with this. So Beseech the Mirror goes and gets Song of Creation. Song of Creation, it was a deck when this was tried last year or so, but if you have to work with Glittering Wish, it can definitely be a little bit slow. Glittering Wish isn't a top-decked Beseech that can be played on turn 3 or turn 4. It exposes you to discard because chances are you have to spend the turn getting the Song of Creation, and then the next turn you get to play it. So Beseech is just faster, and it's a consistency tool. And having 8 copies of this effect is something I am very interested in. I could maybe see an argument to trimming to 7 alongside the Preordains, but I don't think I like that. I think we just want to be maximally consistent. And a lot of the rest of the shell is the pieces that were present in this deck when it was making a few waves previously. So that includes Utopia Sprawl, which is maybe one of the weirder additions. I think it was in some early versions of the deck, but it ended up getting cut for Strike It Rich instead, largely. But Utopia Sprawl has a valuable role here in that it is bargain fodder to Beseech the Mirror, while also being an accelerant. So Beseech the Mirror bargain can sack tokens, artifacts, or enchantments, which is very valuable to us when we have a Utopia Sprawl. Preordain is just a strict upgrade in the cantrip department. Helps us dig towards our Song of Creations. In a pinch, it can be used mid-combo in order to help us dig to another combo piece. So the main deck I like quite a bit. I think there could be an argument to be made for running something besides Engineered Explosives in the 0-drop slot here. Mishra's Bauble is pretty valuable because you can draw a card. Tormod's Crypt could be a contender main deck. I've also thought about something like one Zurin Orb, perhaps. The land base is the part of this that I'm least confident in. The Fiery Islet in particular, I think, should probably be another card, but this is what I ran, so I want to just show this off for the time being. Another thing I thought about was running a Singleton Wish in the side or in the main deck, and then having the option of getting either Laboratory Maniac or Grape Shot. There are some trade-offs here. In particular, Wish lets you win through the One Ring because you can get Lab Maniac, and so that's really nice. But the downside is that it requires significantly more mana to win, and basically necessitates looping your graveyard at least once with Endurance. This is a problem against decks that have inherent graveyard hate, something like Douthie Voidwalker. So if there's a Douthie in play, we can't loop our graveyard, and then Wish as our only means of accessing our win con is a problem. If there is no Douthie in play, we can potentially just loop our, or go through our deck once and Grape Shot to finish off our opponent. So the odds of having to beat the ring in game one, I think, are lower than the odds of having to deal with graveyard hate in game one, especially given that this deck is aiming to win on turn 3 before the ring comes down in most cases. So in a situation like that, I'd rather try to race the ring, play through grave hate, and then we can adjust in post-board games as needed. The cards in the sideboard are designed to solve very specific problems for the most part. There are the Tormod's Crypts are a 0-mana artifact, so they could be swapped in for Engineered Explosives in situations where they are better. They could potentially also be swapped in some amount for Baubles. So a 0-mana artifact that can also be a hate permanent. So that is pretty powerful. The other problems that this deck has is, one, Bowmasters. The deck draws a lot of cards, and it needs to be able to deal with a resolved Bowmasters. So to that end, we have Veil of Summer, and we have Snapback. Snapback is free if we exile a blue card, and we do have a decent number of blue cards. Not a ton. We generally don't want to be pitching Offer. But we can pitch an extra Song, we can pitch a Pact, we can pitch an extra Snapback that we bring in. We can definitely pitch a Preordain. And that can bounce a Bowmasters back to hand and let us keep comboing. Veil of Summer can block the triggers. Decay could kill it, although generally I haven't found myself bringing in Decay against Bowmasters decks for the most part. Decay is generally for another problem, that problem being Teferi. So Teferi is another big problem in that you just can't win when there's Teferi in play for the most part. You can't use Offer to counter your own spells and build up mana, and that just makes it a lot harder to win. You also can't pact your own spells, so 8 of your card draw spells are turned off, and chances are you will not have a critical mass of card draw effects in order to combo. So Decay is there for that. Decay is also there for random hate permanents, Damping Sphere, whatever. The Pithing Needles are because of Beseech and Odawara. We don't have a great answer against the lands that will either bounce or destroy Song of Creation. Sometimes this can be just played through by jamming multiple turns in a row, and that is a pretty powerful property of this deck in general, the ability to jam multiple turns in a row. But it seems like the problems generally for this deck, to some extent graveyard hate, although it can be played through, Bowmasters, Teferi, and then the Channel Lens. Other things like Counter Magic, discard. Counter Magic we have 4 packed for offer. I generally feel like we're in an okay spot against Counter Magic decks, although it is definitely still losable. The usual mix of tempo plus, or a fast clock plus permission is something that we can lose to. So I know that was on the longer side as far as a deck tech. In the future, we will take a look at some of the other things that I've been working on here perhaps, and I definitely intend on running this back with a couple of changes. One spot that I would like to make some changes, just as an advanced thought or something that I'm thinking about, is Beseech is black, Grief is black and free. So a version that leans heavier on black cards and Grief could be something that would let us leverage Beseeches during the combo turn a little bit better. So just food for thought. So with that in mind, let's get into game number 1. These matches are pre-recorded. Like I said, I wasn't originally going to record this. I was just messing around for myself, but then I had the idea that maybe I should throw it up as a video. So this one will be from replays. In the future, I'll try to have commentary be live. I think it keeps the suspense a little bit better. But let's hop to match number 1. All right, so match 1, game 1. Our opponent has revealed an Obosh the Prey Piercer. Our opening hand has a lot of potential, but it is not something that immediately can win on turn 1. We have a little bit, turn 2, because we don't have the second land. So if we did have the second land, we could bauble, counter it with offer, make 4 mana. Another weakness of that, though, is that we don't really have any free spells to follow it up. However, we are on the draw, and I think this hand is sufficiently flexible in either being able to offer and counter, or being able to just draw a couple of lands and then use the Strike It Rich to get to 4 mana, that I am willing to keep this. So our opponent leads on a Ragavan, which is not amazing. It is definitely a little bit annoying to face down Ragavan. We do have the Legacy Doomsday dilemma, where it is possible for the Ragavan to just hit our singleton win con and kill us. The odds of that are not particularly high, so sometimes this is just something you have to risk. In post-board games, you can consider bringing in the Lab Maniac, but I feel like that is generally playing a little bit too scared. So for our turn, we drew Utopia Sprawl. That's pretty powerful. We can play a Utopia Sprawl on our breeding pool, and that is going to let us ramp a bit. We're not quite going to be able to turn 2 here. We could have gone for the Bauble offer line to make 2 mana, but it's risky. If we don't top deck a land, we aren't going anywhere, and even then, so we'd have to use the Song in order to actually have that be our song. We can't really Beseech here because we don't have something to sack to the bargain, which means that Endurance Pitch Sprawl is our only card draw, which could be very bad if we don't draw any follow-ups. So in this spot, I'm more interested in just playing Utopia Sprawl. We can name red so that worst case we can play the Strike It Rich next turn and keep going in that way. So our opponent untaps, they play a Field of Ruin, and this is a problem because they can make a treasure with the Ragavan, and they're going to turn 2 Field of Ruin us here, which gets rid of our Utopia Sprawl. We go ahead and get a Forest, but that was a big deal. We then don't draw a land. So things are not in a great spot in this game 1 here. But we're going to keep going, and we can see what we did / will do. Nothing I can really do about this Ragavan coming in. They do hit a Strike It Rich, which I don't play. We're going to take a look at their top card of their deck and set up a draw with Mishra's Bauble. I need to hit lands. So they play the Den of the Bugbear. We draw a card, and then we draw another card. So we drew a land. So that is very nice for us, because now we can play the Strike It Rich, and we are in a position to potentially win if we top deck another land next turn. So even with that disruption of the turn 2 Field of Ruin, we are in a spot where we definitely can still win this. We literally just need to top deck a land. An untapped land. So not one of our triumphs. However, they have multiple points of burn, and we're dead. So I could have used my Offer You Can't Refuse to counter like the Lightning Bolt or the Stomp, but if I do that, I'm 2 mana away from winning, so I just flatly can't win next turn. And if I do that, then what was I about to say? Yeah, so then I just can't win next turn, and then I'm going to be dead on the next turn's attack. So we don't get game number 1. Unfortunate, but it happens. If they didn't have exactly turn 2 Field of Ruin, I think we would have maybe been okay. We would have been a little bit more accelerated. We would have gotten the Strike It Rich to be played next turn. Maybe we could have made something happen sooner. But that's the game. A little bit unusual for a red deck to be playing Field of Ruin in turn 1. They're going to be playing like Blood Moon, things like this. They are an Obosh deck, so they're sort of that big red style of aggro. Not exactly big red, but yeah, typical Obosh. Alright, so let's go to game number 2. So we're here with game number 2. This time we go first, so we're on the play. That's definitely a big advantage when we're looking to turn 3. Our hand here is pretty good. We have Beseech. We have an artifact that we can sack. We have 3 lands, and we have Offer You Can Refuse. Now we do have the possibility of Bauble Offering to try to turn 2. However, the problem is, in this situation, we are light on resources, light on the lands. Not lands, light on the zeros. And if we sack a 0 to Bauble and then turn a 0 into treasures with Offer, what fuel do we have to start comboing? So I'm going to choose to not go for a turn 2 here. And instead, I'm going to play a land. And then depending on what I draw, I then have the option next turn of Bauble Offering to potentially go for a turn 3. So our opponent, again, has a turn 1 Ragavan. We're on the play, so that's a little bit better for us. We'll grab one of our Triomes. And we have 2 lands here, so we're going to just kill this Ragavan. I would like them to not be playing a Blood Moon or something like that on turn 2. That would be pretty bad for us. So just killing the Ragavan slows down their acceleration, and it means that they don't have 3 mana on turn 2. So at this point, what I was most concerned about was a Blood Moon. So that said, our opponent is going to, and it's worth noting that if we save the decay to actually play on the Blood Moon, we just don't have any of our green or black mana. We don't even have a basic swamp. So given that we were tapped out, no, what did I, hang on. No, we weren't tapped out. We were tapped out from playing the decay. I still like the idea of slowing them down there. We could have held it up, and if they played a moon, then we could have killed it. Maybe that was a mistake, actually. In hindsight, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made for just hold up the decay, and then if they play a scary 3-drop like Blood Moon, we can just go ahead and kill it with the decay. That being said, I mean, them hitting, getting the treasures is definitely annoying. There is always the chance that they can just hit us and lose Scrape Shot, but I think in hindsight, I should not have played that. However, we have drawn another land, so we do have the possibility of... So hang on. So we do have the possibility of turn 4ing here, and they do have the Blood Moon, but we have Offer You Can't Refuse up for it, and so we can counter it. So that is nice. And we drew Summoner's Pact, which is great because basically the best thing we could have drawn in that spot was a 0. If we have a 0 there, now we can spend one of the baubles to bargain, and then we have at least 4 cards that we can draw with the Bauble and the Pact. If we draw a land that we can play, we can Pact for Wild Cantor. So I think we stand a pretty decent chance of winning here. So we're going to go for it. So we play Bauble. We Beseech, sacking the Bauble. We get our song, we play our song, and we're off to the races. We draw Pact, which is very good. So here we have pact, we can pact our pact and then pact our pact, and this is just looking fantastic. We have explosives, we have pact, we have bauble, we have a breeding pool, so we just almost certainly have it at this point. We have our extra land, start using the Strike It Riches as mana neutral. Wild Cantor. Something that is happening a little bit quickly here, but I want to take a second to call attention to it. If we are playing in Engineered Explosives, generally Engineered Explosives is a very good 0 to counter with either Offer You Can't Refuse or with Pact of Negation, because the Engineered Explosives doesn't go to our graveyard the way that Mishra's Bauble does, just through use. So if an Engineered Explosives enters play, that's one more 0 that is out of our deck for a potential reshuffling with Endurance. It can't go back into our deck. All of our other 0s can go back into our deck except Explosives. So given the choice, I would try to counter Explosives where possible with your counter spells. It just keeps your graveyard a little bit more stacked. Puts more 0s in the deck. We're continuing to combo here. That being said, at this point, we just have so much going on that it doesn't really matter. There is the minor snag of we actually haven't seen an Offer You Can't Refuse yet to bring us up on mana. So, we can keep digging to that. Strike It Rich, then play another Strike It Rich. We don't actually, we do have Endurance to play to offer. Here we drew a Pact, and there we go. There's the Offer You Can't Refuse. So we have Offer, we have Grape Shot. We're just making some extra mana in case something goes wrong and we have to keep comboing after the Grape Shot. But we can go ahead and kill them at any time. Why am I not killing them? I don't remember why I'm not killing them. There we go. I think I did have some minor thing that I was playing around. Oh, I think I was... Yeah, I was waiting until I drew a counterspell to have a counterspell up while I had Storm on the stack. Now, what are the chances that our mono red deck here has Mindbreak Trap? Pretty low. What are the chances that they wouldn't have played Mindbreak Trap if they already had it? Pretty low. Especially considering that we played 3 spells to lead the turn on Beseech. They would have just countered the Beseech, but it's literally free. There's no reason not to do it. A cute thing about Grape Shot alongside Storm of Creation is that you can stack the Storm trigger under the Grape Shot trigger. So if you're in a situation where there are not that many cards left in your library, and you may have to fight over the Storm triggers for some reason, or maybe your opponent's going to try to kill you in response, and you want to not deck out when you play counterspells, stack your Grape Shot triggers above your Song trigger, and that's 2 fewer cards you're drawing. Conversely, if you have a reason where you may want to draw the cards before the Grape Shots take effect, then stack the Song trigger above the Grape Shot triggers. So just be mindful of the fact that they can be stacked either way. So now we are 1-1, and we are on to game number 3. So we are here with game number 3. We are on the draw, which is a little bit unfortunate always, but especially when you're on a deck that is as race dependent as this deck sometimes is. So we have a land here on turn 1, Gemstone Mine, and we had a choice. We could have either played Strike It Rich or Preordain. I chose to play Preordain because we didn't have a second land. So the Strike It Rich, I can play that next turn, and really there's no harm done. I still then have access to the +1 mana from Strike It Rich on turn 3. However, next turn, let's say I perhaps want to keep both cards from Preordain, then that means I'm drawing the 2 cards from Preordain over the next 2 turns. One there and then one on the next turn. So the Preordain first gives me, I think, a little bit more flexibility. So Preordain first or Preordain last is definitely something that is matchup dependent. Against perhaps like a discard heavy deck, then I'm a little bit more interested in playing the Preordain later because the Preordain represents the ability to dig towards whatever they take. But against something like this where I need to ensure that I hit the second land, this is not really a consequence of the deck more so than it is a consequence of my hand. I'm going to play the Preordain first. Our hand, other than that, is pretty good. We do have a little bit of a lack of starting to combo with our cards that we have. So we don't have that many zeros, and the one we do have is packed. Cantor is effectively a 0, but only if we have an extra land into play. They did Dash Ragavan, which is an interesting choice. And they are going to have the potential of Field of Ruining us next turn. That being said, we don't really care about this here, just because we do have a Song in hand, so it doesn't really matter to us if we use Beseech or Song. And we can replace whatever land they do field if they do field one. We are in a spot where we can play both the Strike It Rich and the Wild Cantor. And then we have access to, first of all, 4 black mana if we need to use Beseech. And second of all, just 4 mana overall, so that even if they field, we get a new land back and we can play a Song. Or Beseech. Explosives is good in this case in that it is a 0 that keeps us comboing. So our opponent Field of Ruins us, and then they stomp our Wild Cantor. So now, wait, how did they Field of Ruin us? Oh, right. So there's tragedy that happened. The tragedy that happened is that the Ragavan attack hit our Singleton Forest. Ragavan hitting our Singleton Forest means that we cannot get our Singleton Forest when they Field of Ruin us. It is possible this deck should have more basics. The problem is the color requirements are so strict that I did not love the idea of potentially color screwing ourselves. I definitely think the mana base is the part of the deck that needs the most work, so this is something I will pay attention to, but I don't want to fall into the trap of overcorrecting for it. So let's see how it plays out over a larger sample size. So we've drawn a Preordain that we can't really play because we can't afford to lose this Gemstone Mine at this point. Our opponent replays a Ragavan. This time they hit, what did they hit? Oh, they took an offer you can't refuse, which is not that big of a deal. We draw a Song, which is, again, not what we need. We're just looking for lands at this point. A land, and then maybe I can Preordain into a 4th land and then get there. I do have the ability to Explosives offer. However, then I don't really have zeros to start my chain going, and I'm still only on 3 mana. So I don't love that. Our opponent has played a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. However, with the top deck of this Mishra's Bauble, we're still 2 lands away, and so we can't realistically go up by 2 mana. Something I could have tried, which I didn't, which I actually should have in hindsight. Again, hindsight is important, and it is something that you can definitely learn things from rewatching your own games. Something I think I should have tried was pacting their Fable and then offering my Pact. That way I would at least be on 3 mana. And if I'm on 3 mana, then I can hope to top deck a land and then Song. And then we do have at least Explosives and Ball. Well, we didn't know we had Bauble at that point, but we have at least Explosives to start things going. Now, we would have drawn Bauble and not likely been successful. I'm assuming that it is very likely that they have at least a little bit of burn in their hand. So here we scooped it up. So in theory, had I done the offer play with the Pacts, there's a slim chance, but it is not likely. All right, so we lose the first round 1-2. We had some unfortunate luck happen with our 1-0 Forest getting hit by Ragavan, but that's okay. We pick ourselves up and we are off to round number 2. Okay, so we are here with round number 2. Our opening hand definitely has a lot of potential. We have a bunch of zeros. We have a Song. Again, the slight issue is that we only have 1 land. I'm thinking about whether this deck needs another land or 2. Maybe we're a little bit land light. Again, sample size testing, haven't quite gotten there to figure that out. But this is why we play and we test and we learn. So I do have the ability to play Triome on turn 1 and then Preordain to probably hit my second land drop where I can play Strike It Rich. So this hand definitely has a lot of potential, and I would say that this is pretty strong. So we lead on Zagoth Triome. Our opponent has a basic island. And we do hit a land, so that's very good, because now if I find another land, and I do, I have 3 lands plus Strike It Rich for the ability to quickly turn 3 combo. I'm going to play the Gemstone here, and then play the Strike It Rich, just because it doesn't really matter either way, and I don't necessarily want to fetch the basic, or the Stomping Grounds. One potential downside to that is that, well, no, I guess it's the same either way on the math. I was thinking about wanting to preserve untapped lands in our deck for the Strike It Rich, but I think there's actually I think this is a bit of a hindsight moment as well. I think I should have fetched the Stomping Grounds with the Misty, with the idea that we are slightly thinning our deck. So if I draw another fetch land next turn, then I will play that fetch land and have a slightly thinner deck compared to playing the Gemstone. That being said, on this turn, the life is, or in this match, life is very unlikely to matter, given our opponent has so far showed us basic island. Our opponent plays a Mutavault, so this is looking like probably Merfolk. And then on their upkeep, and specifically this reads like Merfolk with a Hexcatcher. However, on our upkeep, they ice our Zagoth Triumph. So suddenly we know they are not Merfolk, and instead they're Rhinos with the Mutavault in order to play Flame of Honor. So they ice us, and that does set us back a turn here. I do float a blue just in case, not really in case, there's no point, but then we can play a Misty Rainforest. I am playing a Bauble here just to get a scry with our land, and because given that they are Rhinos, I would like to find a Pact of Negation in order to potentially stop a Force of Negation that they might have, or find another land in order to have this Offer You Can't Refuse up to play defensively. So I judged that I could spend 1 Bauble on that, leaving the Bauble and a Pact to hopefully either draw again another land or a Pact of Negation. I didn't like my top card, so I'm fetching now, and I can fetch out one of my tapped lands, which gets that out of my deck and just improves my odds while comboing, so that's good. Song of Creation is probably just about the last thing we need, but in a pinch, it can act as a forced counterspell. So we do draw not a counterspell or a land, so I don't have a defended Song of Creation, but I will run out a Song of Creation here, and if they force if negation it, then I have another Song of Creation that I can just jam next turn. I would probably cash at least 1 Bauble in that situation, trying to hit a land drop for next turn, because I would have to burn this treasure in order to play the song. My alternate play is that I can flash back the Strike It Rich and then go for a protected song next turn. That being said, I think I like this play a little bit better, just because they're not guaranteed to have the Force of Negation, right? If you consider like the legacy moves, then, or the legacy like forcible odds, in, well, now they've drawn a couple cards, but that being said, they're still not that likely. So I think I'd rather just jam this, and then I have a pretty good chance of being able to continue the game from here anyway, versus waiting when I don't have to wait. So if it was disastrous and game losing, if I got the song countered here, then I think I'm a lot more likely to play the Strike It Rich and take it a little bit slower. But because it's not, I'm interested in playing the song here. And our opponent is thinking, and they do have the Force of Negation. And I spend a Bauble to draw a card. We can do it on the upkeep. We see them draw another land. And they have Violent Outburst, and they can go get some Rhinos. So they've got their Rhinos, but now we are a land away from winning, and we do. We draw in one of our 2 cards, so now we can play Song, and we can start going with Bauble. We have these Pacts. We have Offer You Can't Refuse if we can get a land in order to keep drawing up, and we do. So we can play our land, we can Pact, we draw 2 cards, we can Beseech our Pact. Here I have the ability to continue chaining with Endurance Pitch Sprawl, so that's good. Explosives. Here I'm holding the Pact, just have it as a defensive tool. You may notice that last game or last match, I talked about countering the pacts where possible, but I would like to hold this one pact in my hand just in case there's some sort of disruption that is unforeseen or whatever that I could prevent if I had the pact. Now, likely they would have played Disruption by now, but I don't feel the need to burn the pact there when I still feel like I'm in an okay position to continue comboing. If my ability to combo was more tenuous, then I would certainly burn the pact there. That being said, my ability to combo has gotten a bit tenuous because I don't really have many zeros left. You can see we had to play the Preordain, and then I packed the Preordain because now my ability is looking a little bit grim. It wasn't when I played the Explosives. So now we have just drawn a bunch of lands. Fortunately, we draw Offer, and we can offer off of this treasure to go back to 2 mana. And that is exactly what we do. We draw another Offer, which we then can use on the Preordain to again keep comboing. Offer on Preordain, it's kind of bad to not get the Preordain's effect, but it is at least mana neutral. Now we have Explosives and Cantor, and I'm feeling a little bit better about this again. Especially given that we just drew an Offer there, we Explosives, and then we can counter that with Offer, and again keep going up on mana. We're pulling out the, so hang on, let me talk about that for a second. So we pulled out the Endurance before we drew the cards from the Offer because our first set of cards drew us the Summoner's Pact. Summoner's Pact is an instant, we can play it whenever we want. Generally, when possible, you want to pull out your cards with Summoner's Pacts early so you don't accidentally draw cards that are your Summoner's Pact targets and then have your Summoner's Pact whiff. So when possible, Summoner's Pact, get your target early. So here we're offering our Explosives, drawing cards. We just have a million things at this point. We have enough lands. We have Grape Shot, and I think in any second we'll be casting Grape Shot again. What was I doing? There we go. I remember. Probably just trying to draw to another pact or something again too. Alright, so we win game number 1 against Rhinos, and let's see how game number 2 goes. Alright, game number 2. We open with a pretty decent opening hand. We have a Sprawl, and we have some of our targets, so we do just cleanly have a turn 3 combo, assuming we can draw some 0-drops. And then the other thing that we would like to draw is a little bit of protection to make us go off through their counter magic. And we draw Pact of Negation here, which is pretty much perfect. I'm going to lead on Utopia Sprawl. It is important to count as early from turn 1 that you will have enough black mana in order to play Beseech on 4. So in this case, I don't need to get Overgrown Tomb because I have Gemstone Mine plus the Misty Rainforest represents a black land. So I can Sprawl and make black, and then I just have enough. And that being said, Forest is green, Gemstone is anything, Misty represents anything, so I can also play Song off of a black Sprawl. So Sprawl and black is not a threat to either of these. Our opponent suspended a Crashing Footfalls on turn 1. Hopefully the game will be over before that becomes relevant. They cycle a Lorien Revealed, and now we draw a Preordain. Preordain is pretty decent. We do play Stomping Grounds here, which lets us play Strike It Rich. We do still have the ability here to play Beseech because we can use Treasure Token, the Sprawl makes a black, and the Gemstone Mine makes a black, so we still have 3 black for Strike It Rich. We can't really play the Preordain here, but that is a risk that we're willing to take. We're okay with that. We will have extra mana once we're comboing, so it will be useful to have that to potentially start us comboing. And Bauble is a perfect draw because we have the ability to start comboing with the Bauble and save the pack defensively. So they let the Song of Creation resolve, which was interesting. Now, note that we're in a spot where if they have like a Boseiju or something like that, we can just let that happen, gain our bit of value with Bauble and some card draws, and then just go for it again next turn. We're not under imminent pressure. Our life total is not so that we're dead. And depending on what other interaction they have, maybe if they have some sort of enchantment removal, then we have this pact, and we can decide at that time, do we want to defend or do we and go all in, or do we want to fight over things here? So our opponent has Force of Vigor. And okay, so with their Force of Vigor, they're targeting Song and our treasure. So I do elect to pact here, because if they had a Force of Negation, they would have used the Force of Negation on the Song of Creation. So this way, we can pact, counter the Force, and maybe they get us if they have another piece of enchantment removal, but with only 3 cards in hand, I'm betting one of them is Violent Outburst. I think it's pretty unlikely that they have like another piece of enchantment removal here. But so it turns out our opponent has the Violent Outburst, and so they go get their Rhinos. And we draw a couple cards. We have Pact and Negation, and our Bauble Resolves, which we use to take a look at our top card, and it's Summoner's Pact, so we're happy to draw that with Explosives. Now again here, because they didn't counter Song, and they certainly would have if they had Force, we will go ahead and pact our Explosives, because they had a window to kill us with either the Force of Negation or for like a second Force of Vigor or something like that, and they didn't take it. So I just feel pretty okay about the position we're in. Additionally, we have this Veil of Summer if we need it as a defensive tool. I know that doesn't work against Force of Vigor, but it does work against Force of Negation. And I think our ability to combo here is in enough question that I am willing to burn the pact here to just ensure that we really get to combo. We draw a land, we can fetch. And it's important here to note that I'm trying to not use this breeding pool for as long as possible, and the situation like this just came up where I have this Utopia Sprawl. I can turn this Utopia Sprawl into mana for free if I have an untapped forest. So generally, it's a good rule of thumb to burn your treasure tokens before you burn untapped forests. This varies slightly depending on if you have questions over color of mana you will need. Like, for example, do you need a red for Strike It Rich, a blue for Offer You Can't Refuse? If you're not sure, then there can be an argument made to keep the treasure token if your breeding pool is like just a forest or something. But depending on the cards in your hand, usually it is going to be correct to burn the treasure token first. Note that I am sacrificing my Mishra's Baubles to just get a little bit more information while I'm comboing. That being said, the cards I draw are the cards I'm going to draw anyway, so it's really not a big deal. The bigger deal is that they're in the graveyard and ready to be shuffled back to the bottom with an Endurance. Note how I'm countering the Explosives so that it ends up in the graveyard. And at this point, we're just pretty cleanly good. Note that we did make that Utopia Sprawl play that I was just talking about. Draw Endurance, we're shuffling, and we cleanly have this. We have Offer, we have Pact, so we just have defensive tools. We can play a Veil of Summer. We're in a little bit of a rough spot there as far as actually having enough cards to continue chaining. But I'm trying to use this pact and this offer essentially as late as possible. So we did have the ability to keep going. We used the Veil just as a draw. We're maintaining 2 mana. The key is always maintaining at least 1 mana so you can go back up with offer. And we hit our Grape Shot, so that's just totally fine. I'm just making an extra mana at this point with the pact offer so that if we had to keep chaining because something went wrong, I would have a mana to continue chaining and then potentially Endurance back the Grape Shot and then re-Grape Shot. So we can let the Endurance happen, or maybe I'm just casting more spells for kicks at this point. Let that happen. Sometimes when you're clicking, you just want to click. And here we go for the Grape Shot. And we got match number 2, 2-0. pretty clean pair of wins. Our opponent had a piece of interaction in both games, and we beat both of their pieces of interaction. So that was pretty nice. On to match number 3. Alright, so with match number 3, we are on the draw. This hand does have a little bit of ramp in the Misties and then the Strike It Rich, so with like a land we can turn 3. That being said, this hand is not great. I actually don't remember if I keep this or not. I think it's a little bit of a risky keep. It turns out I do. I think there definitely could be an argument made for shipping this, because the Grape Shot is nearly a dead card in your opening hand, and then another offer is really not what we needed either. So we play Strike It Rich, we have all of the counter spells. We're looking for a 4th land, and then we're looking for a combo piece, and even then that doesn't quite get us there, because we still need some zeros to actually, we need something to start the chain with the offers on. Our opponent is on burn. Fortunately, they have no creature, but they do just burn us heavily on turn 1. So we draw a Song, that's an excellent pickup. We do also have the possibility here of offering and then offering our offer on a spell that they play in order to ramp up some mana. But they don't play anything on their turn, so on the end turn they play, we get a tap land, and then they play the Boros Charm once we're tapped down. So this is a little bit awkward because now I can't do that offer play we just talked about because we don't have 2 blue mana. So the Boros Charm happens. And we draw Endurance. So this is looking kind of grim at the moment. We do have an offer that can potentially counter, and they only have 3 cards in hand. We have to hope that basically so they have like some Searing Blazes or something. Or lands. So they Lava Spike us down to 3. And that is definitely bad. And we have to Preordain here, which gets even worse because we still don't have... Now we're tapped off of blue, we're at 3, Burn has 3 cards in their hand, 1 mana up, but they would have gone for the Bolt there if they had it. So, like when I tap this land. So now I feel somewhat confident that they don't have a Bolt, but again, in order to keep shield, the only shields I have are using this treasure token, because the Stomping Grounds doesn't really help me, and yes, I can pick blue off of this Utopia Sprawl, but the mana isn't available this turn. So we're still in a very dicey situation here. Our opponent has Roiling Vortex, which will kill us because if no mana was spent to cast it, the Roiling Vortex deals 5 damage to that player. So we will just take 5 damage here potentially for each spell that we play. And so we have to counter this, otherwise we are just stone dead. And that burns us our treasure token. Now we do give them 2 lands, and now we are stone dead if they have anything, but they don't, and they still have 3 cards in their hand. So possibilities of what this could be, it could be really basically the only thing it can be is like a hand of Searing Blazes. Things that target a creature, and there just are no creatures in play. If it's lands, they would have played them. If it's other burn spells, they would have sent them at our face. It could be something like Skewer the Critics, where maybe they don't have enough mana to actually play it, but like they didn't deal damage to us and then they don't have enough mana to actually play it. But besides that, it can't be anything else here. So we untap, we draw a land, so we can play the Song of Creation here. The problem is if we play the Song of Creation here, we can't actually start comboing. So we need to wait, and we need to hold up these offers defensively, and hopefully we can draw a 0 to start comboing on our next turn. So our opponent just passes the turn. We draw another land, and we play it tapped? Why would we play it tapped? Oh, it's because even with that, we still don't have the ability to start comboing. So we play the Breeding Pool. Okay, but then if they... what was I going to say? If they, then we can play Song, we have 1 mana left over, but then we can't play Endurance to like Pact Offer it, we can't play Grape Shot, we can't play offers without a target, so we have no way to actually start chaining, so we're going to have to pass another turn here. We flashback Strike It Rich, figuring if they make us spend the token on offer, then great, they made us spend the token on offer, and if they don't, then that's an extra mana that they had. It's kind of free to go for that, and it turns out they have Boros Charm, which again, we have to offer. They have another burn spell here, they're dead, but they still are sitting on those 3 cards that don't really seem to be doing anything for them. It definitely is reading like Searing Blazes or something like that. I don't even know what else it could be. So they drew a land for turn. So they're still sitting on what is probably 3 Searing Blazes. And here we're going to go for it. So we do have, it's worth noting that we do have the Grape Shot in our hand, and we have 2 mana, which is pretty nice. We would like to not go down too low, because first of all, they didn't have a land enter this turn, so Searing Blaze does only represent 1 damage. So if they had exactly 3 Searing Blazes and triple Searing Blaze, we can defend with Pact, and then we can be okay in a situation like that. So I would like to hold up my defensive spells as much as possible here, unless I really get into a situation where I need to Pact. Here I drew another Pact, so I feel like I can sort of spend one. And again, my ability to combo is in question here. So here I'm offering, I think I'm offering the explosives. I should be offering the explosives. Yeah, I am. Again, we want the explosives in the graveyard. So I still would like to hold this 1 pack defensively. Let's see what we draw. We do have the potential to Grape Shot here to continue comboing if needed. So we drew... Okay, so that was... Where was I? Yeah, so we drew lands, but we do have the ability to play 2 lands here, which is nice because we can Beseech now and still have a mana left over. So Beseech is something that we can draw. It plays 2 spells, so it will draw us 4 cards. So Beseech mid-combo is definitely a rare thing, but in this spot, it's certainly what the situation calls for. And we're just beseeching for Strike It Rich, because we're just looking for the card draw while trying to continue to maintain our mana. So here we have, again, we still just have 2 mana. We're going to keep comboing. We're holding the pacts where possible. Now we have Bauble, now we have Canter. So we have the ability to chain a little bit further. Strike It Rich is a decent pickup. That just is a free replacement. We have Offer You Can't Refuse, which is, again, a free replacement alongside Cantor, or hopefully, if we draw another 0, then it is something that sends us up mana. We don't draw that, so we do again have to burn a Pact and then burn an Offer in order to counter our own Pacts. That will send us up mana. We still are holding 1 Pact defensively. I'm expecting Searing Blazes. I just immediately sack the Wild Canter. No reason to even give them a target. They don't even have priority to play the Searing Blaze there. Again, we're continuing to chain, and at this point, we've drawn a few more 0s, and we just pretty cleanly have this. We have our Grape Shot in our hand. Again, I'm looking for just another counter spell to just be a little bit extra safe. What am I doing here? Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay. Actually, that was maybe a bit of a mistake. I enduranced in order to... So hang on. So let me talk about this. I enduranced in order to shuffle our deck back in so that I could, if I had to fight over things, do so without decking myself, but I think I had a window where I didn't need to do that. I was just having fun with it. That being said, I have enough counter magic in my hand at this point, between Offer, between another Pact, that I have, if they have 3 burn spells, I have 3 counter spells, and I'm just in an okay spot, even with this Searing Blaze. So we can let the endurance go. So they only had 1 Searing. I don't know what they could have possibly had in their hand then if they're holding other Searing, like non-Searing Blaze cards up. Bizarre. And so we are, I think just I was drawing to another Pact. There's really no reason for this. I was probably just having fun. Oh wait, did I not have the Grape? No, I had the Grape. But anyway, we Grape Shot and we get game number 1 here. Definitely a bit of a nail biter. Definitely one I did not expect to win. Our opponent must have been bricking pretty badly with some of their draws. That being said, I mean, they did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards that were relevant, 3 lands, and then 2 cards that were irrelevant. But it was a turn 7 game against Burn, which, I mean, yeah. That's not one that you're going to get too often. So it feels like they definitely got a little bit unlucky. But we, to some extent, got a little bit unlucky too, in that we drew pretty terribly on our first few turns, drew like no 0s, That being said, the hand we kept was definitely a little bit risky, although in a slower matchup it could have been good. So that is game number 1 of match number 3, and we got there against Burn, putting us up 1-0 in the match and 1-1 so far in the league. So on to match number 2. And when I said match number 2, I meant game number 2. Our opening hand, that was a little bit fast, but we mulliganed. I think it was light on lands. This hand is, again, a little bit of a weird one with lands. We've had a lot of one-landers. Now, we have mostly kept them and mostly gotten there. We do have the potential to go for the Explosives Offer play. Our opponent is on Goblin Guide, and we see a Preordain on top. So because we don't have a second land yet, I don't want to rely on just top-decking the second land with the Explosives Offer play. And then there is, of course, the debate of, A, how are we bargaining? Because we'd have to find some room to play this Utopia Sprawl. And B, how are we comboing? Because we don't really have 0 drops. So in this spot, I'm much more likely to just play the Preordain, look for a second land, which I do, and we get Fire Outlet. This is a little bit unfortunate in that we still do not have a forest to play our Utopia Sprawl. Now we do draw the Triome from the Goblin Guide, but that is not an untapped forest. Fortunately for turn, we draw the Misty Rain Forest, which will let us play the Utopia Sprawl, but our opponent has this Roiling Vortex into play, which we need to deal with before we combo off. We were tapped out on turn 1 from playing the Preordain, so we didn't have the ability to counter this with Offer You Can't Refuse. Fortunately, we do have the Engineered Explosives, which will kill this Roiling Vortex. But it's going to take us another turn in order to play the Islet and then play the Explosives and crack it and that whole deal. So we play Explosives. We pass the turn. We can do this on their end step, A, so they take an extra damage, and B, so that they don't have the opportunity to play another Roiling Vortex on their turn. So we go to 6. They have a Rift Bolt, putting us to 3. It's the end step. They do have a mana untapped and 2 lands, but we absolutely cannot win if we do not kill this Roiling Vortex, so we have to go for it here. And they have a Shard Volley to kill us. So that is unfortunate, but we made the play that wins, not the play that doesn't lose of holding up Offer, because maybe we could have, okay, we held up Offer. No, we actually would have been dead anyway to the 1 damage from Vortex plus Guide. So we just had to go for it there, and they had exactly what they needed. So that was unfortunate, but it is 1-1, and we are on to game number 3. Alright, so we're here with game number 3. Our hand is a little bit slow, but we do have combo pieces. We have Offer. We can potentially accelerate this hand if we draw one of our accelerants, of which we have 7. So I do feel okay about this. They lead on Chalice on 0. Now, important distinction with Chalice against our deck. First of all, it's kind of absurd that Burn is playing Chalice. I mean, they can't really play it on 1, so they have to play it on 0. That being said, Chalice on 0 kind of doesn't matter against our deck, because we don't actually care if most of our 0-cost spells resolve. I mean, it's nice if Summoner's Pact resolves, it's nice if Bauble resolves, but do we really care? No. The only spell that we actually absolutely need to resolve is Offer You Can't Refuse. So a Chalice on 1 is very, very bad for us. A Chalice on 0 almost doesn't matter. If they were a blue deck and maybe we needed our Pact of Negations, then maybe I can see an argument for it, but here, no. Turn 2, so you may note that I played that Overgrown Tomb tapped, or fetched that Overgrown Tomb tapped here, didn't play the Utopia Sprawl. The reasoning for that is that if I play the Sprawl, next turn I play the Mine, there's really no way I'm comboing the next turn anyway. Even if I draw a 0-drop, it's not the most likely that I get there, and I feel like this is slow enough that I can just not take the 2 damage, play the Sprawl, and then go for it with 1 more turn of draws happening. So here I play the Sprawl. Note, I'm saving this Wild Cantor for a couple different reasons. One is so that they can't play some sort of Searing Blaze or whatever on it. Not that that really matters, but it would take us off of a mana. And then the other more important reason is I would like to start cycling this once I am chaining combo spells. So I would like this to be card draw, basically, given that the current choke point for me is not mana, but cards. I do have this offer to use defensively if I need to, so I feel pretty okay about that. And another thing, actually wait, I think I made a slight mistake here. I should have played the Beseech. The Beseech, A, keeps a song in hand, which is a green card to pitch to Endurance, and B, gets another song out of my deck, which marginally improves my draws while I'm comboing. So I should have played Beseech there. But in any case, we play Song, they bolt us and helix us, we're down to 4, but they have no more mana up, 1 card in hand, and I feel decently good about this. Draw Catacombs, and we fetch Shock to 1. I mean, they could have Gut Shot, but they don't have Gut Shot. There's no way they have Gut Shot. If they have Gut Shot, they deserve it. Play Strike It Rich. And again, we're in a slightly awkward spot regarding combo pieces because we were down to really kind of a choke point where I had to burn some offers. Now, fortunately, we do seem to have gotten through it. We played a Utopia Sprawl and used it for a mana gain off of a treasure token, so that was nice. Now we have a Pact, we have pitch targets for Endurance. You note the Abrupt Decays that are in to deal with Roiling Vortex. Again, this Chalice doesn't matter. Pact actually is getting countered by Chalice, but again, you can see that we're just fully comboing through the Chalice, and we really kind of don't care. If anything, it's actually helping us somewhat, because it's meaning that like I'm still getting my spell effects and my Pact effects. And I've drawn cards from Pact. Again, Summoner's Pact drawing would be nice, but isn't absolutely critical. And at this point, we just need to find the Grape Shot, and then we are good. So we can watch, there's the Grape Shot, we can Pact, we're offering our own Pact, which is about to get countered by Chalice in order to go up on mana. Endurance happens. Note that I am going to draw a couple more cards in order to draw to a Pact, and we can Abrupt Decay the Chalice, and now I have a Pact up in case, I don't know what they could possibly have at this point, but I just have the Pact up in case they have maybe, no, yeah, I don't know, what could they have that they didn't play yet? I don't know, Mindbreak Trap, but they would have played it earlier, so, yeah. But there's no harm in doing it. Actually, no. Maybe they could have had Mindbreak. I mean, they could have. There's points where they could have stopped us with Mindbreak Trap, but excuse me, they could maybe just be figure that they were saving it for here. I don't know. And we've got match number 3 here, and we are 2-1. The power of Song of Creation. So on to match number 4. So here we are with match number 4. We have a bunch of mana. We have a couple counter spells. Here's a hand where I'm just trusting the fact that I will draw at least one of my 8 songs and or a preordained to help me draw to one of my 8 songs. So we're gonna go ahead and keep this. Our opponent leads on Snow-Covered Island. We draw another land. Here, because I don't actually need to play these... Wait, no, what am I doing? Okay, no, yeah, I'm playing the Strike It Rich on turn 1. Forgot what I did there for a second, but I'd rather develop the Strike It Rich there than the Utopia Sprawl. I don't necessarily know what color I need to name yet. Our opponent plays a Cavern on Merfolk, so now it is real Merfolk and not fake Merfolk, aka Rhinos. We drew a Beseech, which is excellent. That is basically exactly what we needed. And I'm playing the Utopia Sprawl, and I'm playing the Strike It Rich. An argument could be made for keeping the Strike It Rich there as combo piece fodder, but the problem here is I am just concerned about Hexcatcher. So I kind of need as much mana as possible pre-comboing, because I'm expecting a Hexcatcher to get flashed in here. And it does. So the problem here is I need to get enough extra mana that even if they sack their whole board, we can keep going. And they fortunately here only have 2 creatures, which means that I do have a chance here because I have 6 mana. Now, that is without my land drop. And my hand is a little bit tenuous here in that I have Beseech, I have Bauble, I have Pact. But it's now or never. So we're going to go for Beseech. They do have Force of Negation, which is annoying because we have to pact that, and this pact was going to be card draw for us. So they've had a pretty powerful opening hand here so far. We play Song, we play Bauble, we draw 2 cards, and here we can think about if we want to counter, but if we counter, then they know we're down to 0 cards, and they know they can choke us off of mana with Offer by making us pay 2 mana. And even worse, if they make us pay 1 mana and then we don't play the land, then they can make us play the 2nd mana. And the problem is we played a pact in order to get this Song down. So I can't even say, okay, well, we can make them sack their board and then try to pick things up next turn with a Strike It Rich. We're just dead to our pact trigger. So we can't actually afford to try to chain here with the Offer on the Bauble. Now we do have a Strike It Rich and a Preordain, so that's something. But actually, we're in a little bit of a problem because, again, here with this Strike It Rich, they could sack both things, counter our Strike It Rich. Now, if they sack both things, then I can just respond with Offer, counter my own Strike It Rich, make 2 treasures. If they sack one thing, then we're in a worse spot because then we have to decide, okay, am I going to play... well, basically, they do have the window to stop us here, but it's a little bit awkward for them because let's say they figure they sack something. Like, how much does this Strike It Rich matter to me? They don't necessarily know. Maybe I don't care about this. Maybe I have some zeros in hand, in which case, really, is it worth spending one or both of your creatures countering the Strike It Rich? No. So the information, they don't have the information, and that lets us play this Fiery Islet, which is very nice. But we're still in basically the same sort of situation because now we have to go for a Preordain because we're light on combo pieces. So now we have yet another land. We played this Preordain, but again, what are we doing? I mean, they can potentially choke us here with counters. So we have to go for a Pact because, again, we're out of gas. So we draw a little bit of gas here in Summoner's Pact, and we draw another Offer, but we're in an awkward spot here because if we Offer, again, they can double counter us. Now here we have the possibility of not use, or like maybe we have other cards, maybe we have zeros, and that's exactly what we go for. We're on the possibility of they don't necessarily know that they needed to counter that. And once we get past that, that I think was our choke points. Because now we have more zeros, we have more mana. We can kind of figure we always just have two mana dedicated to their creatures, and we can just go off. So they had windows there to stop us, but we leveraged the fact that they had hard decisions about when to use these and give them the chance to not use them, right? It's not even to say make a mistake, because from their perspective, it is not necessarily a mistake. It's hard to know necessarily what our hand is in that situation. And so that's definitely one of those skills that is needed with a combo deck. You need to, play confidently and put that fear into your opponent and perhaps make them not use something that could have saved them because of some other thing that they were trying to play around. In other words, try to have it not look like you're doing what you're doing. Try to have it look like something else, and then maybe you can steal games that otherwise you would have lost. So we get game number 1 against Merfolk, and we're on to game number 2. Game number 2 against Merfolk, and we have, again, a decent opening hand. We have explosives, which is very nice because we can use it defensively to kill some of their creatures, especially Hexcatcher. We have a Beseech and a Song, so we have combo pieces. So really at this point, we're just looking for zeros. We have mana, we have lands. Offer is decent to start us ramping up. I'm fetching out a tri-land because, again, I want the tap lands out of my deck. I am aware of the possibility of Tideshaper Mystic turning this into an island. I don't particularly care. We go for the explosives on 2, and they have Force of Negation for it. Now, I'm relatively okay with this. It would have been nice to keep the explosives, but I'm definitely reading this as another Hex Catcher with the 2 untapped lands, and then burning the Force Negation on the explosives. The explosives on 2 would have really been our out against Hex Catcher. But we do have Bauble. You know, maybe we can just get enough mana. Maybe we can like jam a song and then they have to burn some counters on it, and then we play like the Beseech the next turn or something like that. So, I mean, we have chances. We're definitely not out of this. They still have 2 cards in hand, and this is definitely still reading as a Hex Catcher. We draw yet another land, which is pretty bad. Because really what we're looking for at this point is spells. They're hitting us for 2 more, except really it's lots more. And then they play a Chalice on 1, and Chalice on 1 is a big problem. We have to offer, you can't refuse that, otherwise we're dead. They still have 3 mana. It could definitely still be Hexcatcher. And we're in a little bit of a rough spot because we kind of have to go for it here. I'm basically hoping that they Hexcatcher, then it makes them sack at least one of their creatures, and then they kill us, and then they can't kill us, and then next turn we get to go for it again with Beseech. We're still in a bad spot because we have this Bauble as Beseech food, but then we don't have any angle to actually start comboing. But it turns out they just have Force Negation. So, yeah. Now, we're still not dead unless they drew a Lord. And they drew Silvergill into a Lord. So they get us in game number 2 here. And we are on to game number 3. This hand is a little bit dicey. We do have mana. We have a little bit of comboing potential with the Summoner's Pact. We have a little bit of defense with Offer You Can't Refuse. It's one of those hands where we are just hoping to rely on our ability to draw one of our 8 songs in order to go. So we're really just leveraging that high business count. And this is an example of a hand where Beseech is definitely just so much better than Glittering Wish. Glittering Wish, I understand it makes the mana better, but it slows you down so much, and this deck's real strength is its speed. Now, I'm keeping up Utopia Sprawl there with blue on it in order to potentially offer You Can't Refuse a Chalice, because I just don't have any other answer to a Chalice right now, so I could have used that to play like another Utopia Sprawl, but I can't risk the Chalice here. So, another thing that we have to be concerned about here is Tideshaper taking our lands away from being forests and killing our Utopia Sprawls. So I definitely wouldn't Utopia Sprawl on another forest. I could Utopia Sprawl on the Zagoth Triome, but if they do have a Tideshaper here, I want to give them a bit of a choice. Do they hit the forest and take away our Utopia Sprawl, or do they hit the Triome and then, I mean, yes, it hurts our mana a little bit worse. It takes us further off black, but at least the Triome is a better land for us overall than the forest. So our opponent does have the Tideshaper. They do hit our forest, getting rid of our Sprawl, which is definitely the right choice. I mean, that slows us down. But now we can play another Triome. Now, we do have no land, and we have no red source. So we're in a little bit of a dicey situation here where I also don't have any business. So I'm burning this Mishra's Bauble to draw a card. And it's definitely one of the tougher things about this deck, deciding when to use the Mishra's Bauble as card draw versus as a Cheerio combo piece. Here, I can Zagoth the Utopia Sprawl onto itself, and I still have a offer up for Chalice with this Forest turned Island, which is something. You note that I took a second and tapped the forest there, but it is not a forest any longer. And here we choose red because we could play the Strike It Rich next turn with this. And it's worth noting that well, we didn't know we had the counter draw at that point, but with the Triome and then the Strike It Rich, that's 2 black, and then I can flash back the Strike It Rich for the 3rd black. So if my business is Beseech, I have a realistic plan at getting to the correct bit of mana needed for it. So I don't need to like name black or something here. So they do have Chalice on 1, and we have Offer You Can't Refuse for it, which is exactly what we needed. Summoner's Pact is kind of the last thing we needed. We do have Strike It Rich, and we have Wild Cantor, so that is very good. Now we have enough mana in play. And our opponent, they flashed in a Trickster, but they don't have that much pressure on us yet. We do have zeros, and we have the Pact to defend against what I'm assuming is a Force of Negation. Now, Hexcatcher at any point could be very bad here, and we have a super awkward thing happen in that they Trickstered our Cantor on our upkeep, and then we drew Beseech, and then we were off by black mana. We have the Treasure, and we have the Zagoth, but we don't have enough black mana overall. So we're going to flashback this Strike It Rich. We're going to hope we can fade like Hexcatcher for one more turn. Or, I mean, if they're holding it up to play in response, then we have Pact for it if they don't play it off of Cavern, but now they'll play it off of Cavern. But we'll make an extra Treasure, and now now we have an extra mana, and we can Beseech next turn, and we should just be able to combo. Now, again, we could be dead if, well, no, a Lord wouldn't have killed us there. It would have had to have been 2 Lords, but they didn't have anything either way there. They just had an extra land. They have 2 cards in hand. I'm certainly betting on a Force of Negation that we're going to have to beat here, and I think they are tapping lands for that, but we will Pact the Force of Negation, and we have a pretty good setup here to start comboing with a couple zeros and an offer, and the mana to play the offer already. So we end up with the Song in play. We Pact. We offer our own Pact to go up on mana. Pact, Veil, we're just chaining at this point. The reason why I offered the Pact there is because I didn't draw more business off of that first 2 cards, and depending on what I draw with the Pacts, with the offers cards, I potentially am going to want to get a Cantor with Pact to chain more, or I'm going to want to get an Endurance, and because that might change depending on what I have, I'm Pacting the first one, and then I'm just going to see what I draw, and then I know what to get better with the second one. Actually, does that matter? That might not matter. Because did I have the Song in hand at that point? I don't remember if I had the Song in hand at that point. In that case, Endurance is free also. So it doesn't really matter either way. But at this point, I'm just pretty much in the clear. We're going, we have Veil, we have multiple Endurances. We are a little bit light on business, but we still have enough that we should just be okay. Note how I'm keeping this Overgrown Tomb up so that I can sprawl it and keep chaining that way. Because that makes Sprawl mana neutral. And the key with this deck really in comboing is making your 1-drops mana neutral. Specifically Strike It Rich, Wild Cantor, sometimes Utopia Sprawl. And the rest of this is just a formality. Alright, so we got there in match number 4. We are 3-1 on to match number 5. So we're here with match number 5. Again, we have a slightly awkward opening hand, but we do have mana, we have some combo pieces, and we're just looking to leverage that top deck of one of our 8 copies of Song of Creation. So this is okay. The slightly awkward, well, no, we do have Sprawl and Preordain next turn, so it's okay. It would have maybe been nice to be able to double Sprawl next turn. We can't unless we draw a land, and would really rather not draw a land. It's not bad to have the second Sprawl in our hand, however, because we would like to be able to potentially have it be Endurance food. That being said, we drew a hand where we can just play the second Sprawl. So here we can Sprawl. They do Spell Pierce it, which is definitely a bold choice. Then we're going to Sprawl again. Again, we're waiting on playing this Preordain because it's a slower blue deck. I'm not under a ton of pressure. I would like to play the Preordain kind of as late as possible so I know what I'm fishing for. It's the same sort of idea in Legacy. You know, hold your cantrips until you know what you want to get with them. So here we have an explosives. I'm playing an explosives on 2. Why was I playing explosives on 2? Oh, because of Bowmasters. Yeah, so here I'm definitely a bit scared of Bowmasters. I can't actually play the Beseech because even though I have the Proving Grants and the Sprawl, I only have 2 black mana, and that's not enough. Also, they are a Grixis deck, and I'm a little bit concerned about their ability to just have a counterspell here, so I would like some defense for this Beseech. They have Archmage's Charm, so that's not the greatest because now they just have more cards, especially if they're burning that for cards instead of holding it up as a counter. I definitely feel like they have a counter here, and I would like to wait until I draw a Pact of Negation. They're playing Flame of Honor, so they're playing mono instant speed divinations. Again, we have this explosives here waiting for a Bowmaster because we've seen black mana. They play a Murktide. Now I could have played Endurance earlier, but again, I just am looking to retain my ability to combo. I'm kind of figuring that there's a decent chance that I draw some sort of counter magic here so that I can force through this Beseech and start comboing. They do flash into Bowmasters. I'm letting this happen because I'm figuring that we're basically dead in 2 turns either way, but I can probably survive the first hit. And so I would like to crack this explosives kind of as late as possible, just so that they don't like play another Bowmaster, or maybe it makes the mana weird for them. It's a little bit awkward to... Wait, hang on. No, this is this turn. So next turn, I'm going to have that option. I could crack it here, but again, just as late as possible if I'm not using the mana for something else. Here, I would like to have been able to jam a song in order to force a counterspell, but the problem is then I can't crack the explosives, and I can't crack the explosives plus Beseech on the same turn next turn, so unfortunately that plan is just kind of out. So I need to... So here I go to 4. End step, I crack the explosives. Yes, they could still flash into Bowmasters. We hope that we're going to draw a Pact. Offer is a counterspell, technically. So we beseech, note that we're beseeching here because we would like to thin our deck of a song once we start comboing. Also, this song is pitchable to Endurance, so both of those are very, very relevant pieces of information here. We do have 1 counterspell up here to defend. They're playing Snapcaster Mage, which, I mean, they can snap Spell Pierce, which is not great. We're going to have to offer that. Now, it is worth noting that I could have Enduranced in response to the Snapcaster pitch song. If I Enduranced in response to the Snapcaster pitch song, what was I saying? There was some line I had where I did not feel particularly confident in that. But somehow my song resolves here? I don't remember this. What happened? I guess we won this? I actually thought we lost this. I don't remember this. I probably should have pitched the Endurance and just tried to get there on the back of the 2 Pacts, figuring that they were very likely to have another piece of permission. I think that was definitely a misplay in hindsight. But again, we watched something, we learned from it after the fact. I don't know what... I guess they just have like mono removal in their hand. I certainly expected to be dead there to another piece of counter magic. Maybe they just have like more Snapcasters. We are in not the best shape here. Because we are chaining Strike It Riches, but we drew kind of a million lands. And now I'm in an awkward spot where I have to Pact and then Pact. We maybe have gotten through the choke point now, though, because we can offer. And we have shields down, so if they have something, they can just kill us. We have enough zeros now, though, that maybe there's a chance. We Endurance ourselves, loop things back. We have another Pact now, so that feels better. Again, there was every window in the world for them to kill us with Burn or another Bowmasters or whatever. I mean, they would have played another Bowmasters if they had it much earlier, but Now we're going up on some mana, and I feel okay about this. We did kind of draw a ridiculous batch of runner of lands in a row. But we got to the grape shot, and we get game number 1 against Grixis control / tempo. I guess like Wizards, maybe. Grixis Wizards, because they're playing Flame of Honor with Snapcaster. And on to game number 2 we go. So let's see what our opening hand looks like this time. Our hand is not great. I brought in the snapbacks to fight against the Bowmasters, also the Veils for the same reason. Also the Veils fight against their counterspells. We have a lot of protection. We have lands. They're not the fastest deck, so I am going to go ahead and keep this. I do need to draw both Business and some zeros. And another land is not what we needed, although it is nice to get to 5 for the ability to use Veil defensively. Here I'm just holding up Veil, but end step, I mean, sure, if they want to flash in Bowmasters, I will not Veil there. I'll save the Veil for our combo turn to protect against the Bowmasters. Again, yeah, I'm not Veiling the Bowmasters here. I do have the ability to snap back the Orc Army if needed. Again, I'm just fetching out our tap lands. More snapbacks is really not what we needed. We need some sort of zeros. Maybe we'd take got Preordain or something. I did, I think, trim the Preordains. That's one unfortunate fact of looking at the games off of replays. I don't have the ability to show you the sideboarding, I don't think. We do have a Beseech, which is nice, but we have nothing to sack to the Beseech. Meanwhile, our opponent is drawing every one of the cards. The Pact is nice. Again, the snapback can be relevant. We're looking for zeros. Stone of Eric is a little bit annoying, but it's really not that important. We have Grape Shot, so we can kind of just win through that. We don't need to reshuffle our deck. I talked about that in the deck tech at the beginning. Tormod's Crypt is a 0. I'd rather not spend it yet, although I could spend it to weaken a potential Murktide. I think it is not worth it. I think we're in a dicey enough spot where I either need it to be Beseech food, or I need it to be a target for, what was I going to say? Or I need it to be something that will draw me cards. I'm in a little bit of an awkward spot here where I'm saving the Strike It Rich as a business spell, and I could have gone for it there. I could have Tormod, Beseech, Veil to defend, Pact to defend, and I do have the ability to strike plus snapback to draw some cards. That being said, they have 7 cards in their hand and 6 lands untapped. I would like them to tap down a little bit, so my current plan is just to have them tap into like a Murktide or something like that on their turn, and when they tap down a little bit, I'll plan on going for it then. They have yet another Bowmaster, so that is not ideal. And they have Bolt. So they just had enough burn here that they're hitting us for 4, which is pretty annoying. Now we go for it. We Veil. They have a counterspell. We Pact the counterspell. They have another counterspell. So the problem here is we need this Veil to resolve because of these Bowmasters. And because it's double Bowmaster, I can't snap back one even. Even if I snap back one, then I would literally only have the Strike It Rich to make me some mana. So that Bolt was actually pretty annoying. If I didn't get bolted there, I mean, I'm probably still dead to the double counter, but maybe I could have made something happen with like bouncing the one Bowmaster. And I get to at least try to draw a couple cards and see if we can get there. The other problem, though, is they can just replay the Bowmaster. So really, it is critical that this Veil resolves. And so they get game number 2. And we're on to the final game. Is it going to be a 3-2, or is it going to be a 4-1 for this league? So we are here with the final game. Our hand is a little bit awkward, but we do have Strike It Riches, so we have some mana to develop things. We have a Snapback to potentially fight against the Bowmasters. We have Grape Shot, which usually is kind of a dead card, but here to fight against Bowmasters, it's not the worst. We have Bauble, so we're looking for business. We're looking for a bit of protection. But on turn 1, we'll play the Strike It Rich, and I am going to play the Bauble to try and draw us either to business or also to another land or also to protection. They have a Stone of Eric. Again, this is not critical, but it is a little bit awkward because it means I can't use this Grape Shot to like kill Bowmasters or whatever. And then they Chalice us on 1 and we don't have an answer for it. So that's bad. I can't play Strike It Rich. I need to find one of my Abrupt Decays. And we still can't play Strike It Rich. Now, if we had more lands, maybe we could have just tried to jam some of these, and potentially we could have A, eaten our way through some of their counter magic, B, turned into a spot where I was like flashbacking Strike It Riches, and even if they get countered, I'm at least drawing cards. That being said, we don't draw any lands, and that's bad too. And our opponent has a Murktide. And Snapback, we bounce the Murktide, pitching a Song, which buys us a little bit of time, but we still don't have lands. Okay, that's a land. That's something. Our opponent is going to crack the Stone of Eric to draw a card. Probably they're looking for some more pressure, maybe a counterspell, but more likely a little bit of burn to try and close this out quickly. Maybe just looking to make the graveyard a little bit bigger for Murktide also. So they get their Murktide back down. We have to kind of fetch, and I'd like to fetch out one of the tap lands to just have the ability to draw untapped lands, which here I do. I'm dead in 2 turns, I draw a Breeding Pool, and here I'm actually in a kind of interesting spot where if I draw an untapped mana, I can potentially play enough spells here. They are at 10 life. I can potentially play enough spells here to natural Grape Shot them. If I like Beseech for something, Crypt, Pact, Summoner's Pact, if they maybe interact with a permission spell or two, could we? That's my hope right now. Because now it's too slow for removal on the Chalice. And we draw Utopia Sprawl, which is interesting. I can potentially try to sprawl one of my lands, but that is only mana neutral. That doesn't send us up mana. So basically what I need to happen is I need this Beseech to resolve, and I need it to get me mana. So we Beseech. They counter. We Pact. They Snapcaster. We Pact. We grab Endurance. We Endurance. We're going to Endurance away their counterspell. And then had they not had the second Snapcaster here, we could have Enduranced away their counterspell. We could have then resolved our Beseech. We could have gotten a Strike It Rich, and we could have Grape Shot at them. But they had second Snapcaster into the counterspell in response. So they had triple interaction. We could have beaten double interaction. And now we are 1 mana off. Note that storm count of 9. Note this Grape Shot in our hand. Note this very sad Stomping Grounds that does not have a second land. So 1 more mana or 1 less piece of interaction from our opponent, and we could have actually beaten this Chalice on 1. So this was such a close game, and I would have really liked to pull that one out, but we didn't quite get there. And so it's a 3-2 for the league. That being said, I feel like the deck had a pretty strong showing, but there are definitely some changes that I would want to make going forward. I need to think a little bit more about the mana base. I need to think a little bit more about the total land count. I need to think a little bit more about, do we really want explosives, or is there an argument to be made for like main deck Tormod's Crypt? Like I was saying in the deck tech, I'm interested in Zurin Orb as well. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's good to be back. It's good to be playing some more combo decks in Modern and probably eventually Legacy. And we'll keep brewing. I have some other brews for next time. I've been working on some stuff with Inverter and Beseech. I'm not quite finalized on what I would want to play with that yet, I've been working on things with Underworld Breach. I've been working on some stuff with. There's something else I was working on. I don't remember what. Oh, not that I was working on, but I saw the eggs deck, and I definitely want to play the eggs deck at some point too. If there's something to do with Ad Nauseam and Beseech, I need to think about it more, but I'm not that optimistic. That being said, we're going to keep comboing, and in the meantime, or until next time, take care. Hopefully it won't be like 2 years or whatever it has been.